Welcome. This is David Boles, Human Meme. Today's topic, Fat Girl, a movie short. Screenplay by David Boles. Fade in. From above, we zoom in. A ticking clock is heard as day breaks into dawning through a leaded window framed in painted white wood. Our fat girl, 600 pounds of firm, glowing, athletic flesh, is hyperventilating and sitting alone in an empty white room made of logs. The floor is black and white checkerboard asbestos linoleum. The lead in the windows bends the view beyond. She peers up at the ticking clock and calms her breath. Fat Girl is sitting in a lawn chair that has no ribbon weave, only a few lengths of strategically aligned duct tape hold her weight. And the tape is strategically wrapped around the back and front of the chair to keep her from falling through. Shoeless and dressed only in a dingy bikini, or is it her regular underwear? Fat Girl pinches her belly and leaves a red mark that does not fade. From behind her, we see her back fat and her butt fat pushing through the duct-taped lawn chair. Aluminum rivets groan against her weight. Fat Girl's bare toes tap in rhythm with the ticking clock. The lawn chair squeaks under her weight as she pushes herself up and out. Now freed from the chair, Fat Girl catches her breath as red welts from the duct tape pinching her begin to rise. Fat Girl opens the door of the room and finds herself outside in the wind on a misty day. She searches the sky for the angle of the sun and measures its yaw between her fingers to remember. She races up the hill and into the woods. The wind billows her ginger hair. Every thunderous pounding of her feet on grass and gravel reverberates up her simply clad body and out of the breath in her mouth. Steam, rising from her body, follows her in the air. And she trips and falls headlong into a stream. The Fat Girl bounces in the water like a raft on the rapids. Rolling out of the water and onto a muddy plat, she stops and unearths a rock and finds a sandwich bag with a single orange Cheeto inside, the puffed kind, not fried. And she delicately eats the Cheeto in 3 precise bites and 1 swallow. As she pushes herself up from the hardening caliche, she waves her arms, and a hidden door opens in the trunk of a massive oak tree. And she delicately withdraws a black magic cape that glows in the morning shadow of the forest surrounding her. The Fat Girl whips the cape over her shoulders and stands there, tall and sweating and muddy, with orange Cheeto dust covering her mouth like lipstick, and still in her dingy bikini underwear, she stands there in her cape, owning the day. And she begins to spin, and the cape becomes a propeller, and she is slowly driven down into crouching, then kneeling, then a full belly-up submission on the ground as the cloak enrobes her. She has disappeared. The cape, flat on the ground, lifts as steam rises from its seams. Then a rustling is heard as the fat girl reappears from inside the giant oak tree. And she is now holding a handful of puffed, not fried, orange Cheetos. She places 2 of the puffed treats behind her ears, like hearing aids. Then she makes orange Cheeto eyebrows with 2 other puffs before devouring them. Next, she draws an orange Cheeto mustache with another puff and eats that one too. The fat girl claps her hands, and the commanded orange Cheetos dust rises around her, and she spins in its wake. And she violently shakes her head, and she catches on her tongue the 2 Cheetos dislodged from behind her ears in the shaking, like snowflakes falling from a winter sky. She cocks her eyes to the sun and recalculates the time by pinching her fingers as her eyes reflect the moon in a silvery sky. The fat girl points at her cloak. It vibrates, it rises, and flings itself onto her outstretched arm, like a bath towel on a drying rack. She flings the coat back into the oak tree with a circular, rotating, underhand softball throw. And the oak tree catches the cape and closes the door. The fat girl turns from the forest and spins back to retrace the pathway homeward. She runs. Out of breath and panting, the fat girl's entire body heaves like a giant rubber bladder to catch her breath as she bursts back into her white room. Still empty, still ticking. The fat girl propels herself back into the ratty, duct-taped lawn chair. The aluminum legs squeal against the black and white checkered asbestos linoleum floor as the entire effort sags in exhaustion. The fat girl stills herself and checks the clock on the wall. Ticking. Her foot talks in time with the ticking clock. Silence. Then the white door to her room creaks open. In walks a fat man, a tall, circular, heaving beast, and twice as fat as she. Dropping beads of sweat follow him along the marred asbestos floor. The fat man appears to be dressed in a black robe, but as he moves into the room and the outside sunlight catches him through the leaded windows. We see the fat man is naked and covered in thick, matted hair, like a black bear. The fat man approaches and towers above the fat girl. The clock ticks. He sticks out a thumb and licks it with deliberation. The fat man takes his wet thumb and draws it across the fat girl's upper lip, smearing the residual Cheetos dust across her cheek. She stares up at him, unmoved. He stands over her, placing one of his legs between hers, and then, deliberately, sucks on his thumb to lick off the Cheetos dust. The fat man pops his thumb out of his mouth, raises his hand, and slaps the fat girl with an open hand across her Cheetos-stained cheek. Her face does not change. He raises his arm and slaps her again. Again. She will not be moved. As the fat man raises his hand into a fist, the fat girl erupts from her chair with a blood-chilling scream. And she tackles him, yanking out fistfuls of his hair as he stumbles and falls under the weight of her rage. The fat man lands hard on the asbestos linoleum floor with a slap and a thud. The fat girl whips off her underwear bra and wraps it tightly around the fat man's neck. And with every pound of flesh within her and around her, she twists and squeezes the breath out of him. The fat man, now dead, lingers on the floor, sprawled out, face down, like a bear rug in a skiing lodge. The fat girl sits on his back, triumphant, her naked chest heaving for air, and she deliberately reclines against him, back to back, she in snow angel position. And then she reaches inside her bikini underwear bottoms and pulls out a single Cheeto hiding in her crotch. The puffed kind, not fried. And she licks off the orange dust. And slowly and deliberately, the fat girl pretends to smoke the Cheeto like a cigar. The clock ticks. She taps the ash from her Cheeto stogie in rhythm with the second hand of the talking clock. And she then takes another long drag on the orange bliss. And she blows misty smoke rings into the air, swirling around her like snow whisking a mountain. In the flurries from above, we pull back and away and away. Fade out. Thank you for listening. Be a human meme.